Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I welcome you to the lecture 14. We are going through the chapter number 4, Sensation, Attention and Perception. The topic which we are going to read today is Anatomy of Eye, What We See and How We See. Okay. Eye, Visual Sensation. Visual sensation actually tops all types of sensations. 80% of the information gathered through sensation belongs to eye. That is why the eye is called the queen of sensation. Okay. The loss or impairment of vision, or we can say that the loss or impairment of sight, is often compared to darkness. It is because the process of getting information about the environment is very adversely affected. If we are unable to see, the other sensations are also masked. Visual sensation, or we can say that vision or eye, holds a great importance. The sense organs or the sense organ which is involved in visual sensation is the eye, and it is stimulated by light. Vision is produced by light. When the light falls on the visual cells on the retina, then the image is produced. Actually, eyes are encased in orbital cavity, and each eye is attached to it with 6 nerves. The eye is a very sensitive sense organ, and nature has created eyebrows, eyelids, eyelashes to protect the eye from any sort of damage, dirt, perspiration, and so on, and also to keep it intact. Okay. So coming to the anatomy or structure of human eye. Human eye consists of 3 layers: sclerotic layer or sclerotic coat, choroid coat, and the retinal coat. Sclera, choroid, and the retina. Let's discuss these layers one by one in detail. Okay, the sclerotic coat can be divided into sclera. It is the outermost layer which is made up of thick white fibrous material. This outermost layer of the human eye is made up of white fibrous material. It is a sort of protective layer which forms the front of the eye, and it is transparent. Okay. The next part is cornea. Transparent front of sclerotic coat is actually the cornea. This part is a bit curved. You can see it in the diagram also. The cornea itself is a delicate membrane. Its curve is sustained by aqueous humor behind it. This curve is maintained or sustained by aqueous humor behind cornea. The cornea receives light waves from external environment and lets them enter the eye. Okay? Apart from these 2 layers, a very thin protective membrane covering the cornea is called conjunctiva. This membrane helps in reflex movements of cornea. Okay? So, sclerotic coat consists of sclera, cornea, and conjunctiva. The next layer or coat of the human eye is choroid coat. This is the middle layer of the eye that is black or very dark grey in color. Okay. The choroid coat contains pigments that absorb excess light. Okay, what is the purpose? It absorbs excess light and it also supplies blood to the eye. It contains thin blood vessels which supply blood to the eye. Choroid coat can be divided into iris. It gives the eye its characteristic color. The iris is actually the front of the choroid coat. It is located exactly behind the cornea. Okay, it is located exactly behind cornea. This part. The iris gives eye its characteristic color. The brown, black, or blue color that we see in the center of the eye is, in fact, the iris. Okay, the colored part, either it is blue, black, or brown, it is the iris part, which is exactly behind cornea. Along with the pupil, iris controls the light entering the eye. The next part is pupil. The pupil is an opening in the center of cornea. Okay, this is pupil. You can see it in the diagram. The iris is responsible for dilating or constricting the pupil. Okay, when the light level is low, the iris contracts and consequently the pupil widens. If in bright light, the iris dilates and covers the pupil, which results in the constriction of pupil. It is the pupil that lets light enter the eye. Okay, the constriction of the pupil in bright light reduces the amount of light entering the eye, whereas the dilation of pupil in low light lets more light enter the eye. Pupil dilates in low light so that more light can enter the eye and vision can be produced. If there is excess of light, then the pupil constricts so that the amount of light required to enter, only the amount of light which is required to enter should enter the eye. Otherwise, it would damage the eye in any case. So, the light which is entering the eye is being controlled by this iris and pupil part, along with the other sclerotic layers of the sclerotic coat. Okay, ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles are located beside the iris. They actually help the iris to move. What is iris? Iris is the colored part, and these muscles help iris in movement. When the iris has to contract or dilate to control the amount of light, ciliary muscles help it in this task. Okay, ciliary muscles help the iris to contract or dilate while adjusting the light coming inside the eye. Okay, another part is lens. A biconvex lens lies behind the iris. Its function is to adjust eye for long sight and short sight. This form of lens is actually known as convex lens. Okay. For short sight, the lens changes its shape to focus exact and clear image of the stimulus on the retina. In this case, the lens becomes thin in the middle and thick at the corners. This form of lens is called concave lens. If the lens does not change its shape to focus exact image on the retina, vision gets poor. Okay, this is the property of this convex lens in the eye so that we can focus on images, focus the image. This defect can be removed if there is a defect and the lens is not properly shaped. This defect can be removed by wearing spectacles with convex or concave lens. Nowadays, there are so many artificial lenses being used as well. Okay, the lens is also attached to ciliary muscles. It is the ciliary muscles that help the lens to change its shape for looking towards the distant, close, or far off objects. Okay, ciliary muscles help the iris in movement as well, and ciliary muscles help the lens as well. Next is the aqueous humor. What is aqueous humor? The watery liquid which lies between the lens and the cornea of eye is called aqueous humor. What is the function of aqueous humor? It keeps the eye wet and it sustains the curve of the cornea. So aqueous humor, what is the basic purpose of aqueous humor? To keep the eye wet so that eye movements are smooth, so that the eyes do have this friction property so that they can move easily. Next is the retinal coat. This is the innermost layer of the eye that contains small cells and fibers. We know that a little excess of the light which enters the eye can damage the eye. Optic nerves are located in this very cup-shaped part of the eye. The biconvex lens focuses the image from the external environment on the retina. This image is inverted and gets upright after the process of vision. When the process of vision is complete, this image is inverted and it gets upright. After this layer, there lies a chamber in the eye. Vitreous humor. The eyeball is empty inside and contains vitreous humor. Okay. So this chamber contains vitreous humor. What is the function of this liquid or this humor? It is a thick, sticky, transparent fluid which fills the eye chamber. Okay. This part is the eye chamber and this is filled by vitreous humor. Vitreous humor keeps the structure of the eye intact and it protects it from being compressed. We have seen that aqueous humor also provides wetness to the eye and vitreous humor keeps the eye intact and being avoid and helps in avoidance of being compressed. Fovea. Okay, in the center of retina, there is an area which is filled with cones. And this is the area of clear vision, or we can say that this is the area of clearest vision for the detection of colors. So fovea is the part of retina where cones are present. What are cones? Cones are the receptor cells which produce color vision. So this part is specialized for detection of color. Fovea on the retina is specialized for color vision due to the presence of cones. Okay. Another part is the blind spot. Blind spot, it is a spot on the retina where there are no rods and cones. There are no receptor cells. If there are no receptor cells, vision will not be produced. It is at this point that the optic nerve converges to carry the image on the retina to the brain. There are no rods and cones at this point because of the convergence of retina and optical nerve. Okay? Because of the absence of rods and the cones, any light entering this spot goes undetected and no vision takes place. This is why this spot is known as blind spot. Okay? Blind spot has no rods and cones and so no vision is produced. In this At this part there is convergence of retina and the optic nerve. Okay. The retina contains two types of cells which are the real photoreceptors. These cells make vision possible. Okay? Rods and cones, these cells make vision possible. The light waves have to pass through the cornea, iris, lens, aqueous humor, and vitreous humor to reach these sensitive cells. Okay, the light waves enters the eye, passes through this outer portion cornea, then iris, lens, aqueous humor, vitreous humor, and then reaches the retina part of the eye. These photoreceptors are of two types, or these receptors are of two types, rods and cones. What are rods? These receptors are straight and rod shaped. Okay, these are straight and rod shaped. They are located on the side of lower layers of retina. They can function under conditions of low light. Rods function in low light. Rods function in darkness. They have excellent capacity for receiving sensations of white, black, flash and brightness. They are found in greatest number at the angle of 20° from the center. As we move away from the center to the corners, they grow in number. Rods grow in number from center to the corner of retina. Their special characteristic is that they can function in low light, so they are also called cells of nocturnal vision. Without light, vision is not possible. Okay, vision involves at least 300 millimicron wavelength of light waves. So rods are the receptor cells which work in darkness, which work under conditions of low light. On the other hand, cones are the receptors which are cone shaped. Okay, they can detect all types of color. Cones are specialized in color vision. They are located in the lower part of retina. They are most thickly packed in the lower part of the retina, and there is a spot near the retinal center where their presence is 100%. This spot is called fovea. Okay, as we have read earlier, fovea is a part of retina which contains 100% of cones, and cones produce color vision. It is also called yellow spot. As we move further away from the fovea, rods begin to mix with cones, and away from the retinal center, the upper part of the eye contains no cones. Cones can detect things in adequate light only. So, cones are also called cells of diurnal vision, and rods are known as cells of nocturnal vision. Okay? The optic nerve. The optic nerve actually passes near the nose at the back of the eye and then they get attached to the retina. It passes near the nose at the back of the eye and then it gets attached to the retina. What is the purpose? It detects every image on the retina and then carries it to the occipital lobe at the back of the brain. Occipital lobe of the brain is specialized for vision. So optic nerve carries the message to the occipital lobe of brain. The inverted image focused on the retina gets upright when the optic nerve carries it to the brain, and thus the process of vision is completed. The process of vision is completed when this inverted image gets upright in the occipital lobe, and this message is taken back to the eye. Okay, and then this vision is produced. Okay, this was the anatomy of eye. Now we will see that how visual process works, or how we see and what we see. The visual process. During the visual process, light waves pass to the transparent cornea, okay, as we have read earlier. There, these waves slowly travel through the aqueous humor and reach the pupil. And then, with the help of iris, the pupil adjusts to control the quality of light. If there is too much light, the iris dilates so as to constrict the pupil. In case of low light, the iris contracts and thus the pupil dilates to project the proper or adequate amount of light onto the lens. The lens, with the help of ciliary muscles, increases or decreases its convexity according to how far or near the objects are. Then the light waves which pass through the vitreous humor form inverted image on the retina. Having gone through the chemical changes, this image gets upright with the help of the optic nerve during the process of reaching the occipital lobe. In this way, the visual process is completed with the image when the image actually reaches the occipital lobe. Different chemical process or changes occur in the occipital lobe, where this inverted image gets upright with the help of the optic nerve. During the study of nervous system, it has also been explained that the messages from the right part of the body are received in the left hemisphere, whereas the messages from the left part of the body end up in the right hemisphere of the brain. In case of optic nerve, the process unfolds like this, that the nerves extending from the outer part of the eye carry messages to the same hemisphere, whereas the nerves spreading out from the inner parts of the eye end up in the opposite hemisphere. Okay. In other words, we can say that the optic nerves of the left side extend to the right hemisphere, and those of the right side of the eye extend to the left hemisphere of the brain, and the spot where these optic nerves intersect each other is called the optic chiasm. Okay, so this was about the visual process. Light enters the eye and how inverted image is formed on the retina, and how this image gets upright when the visual message reaches the occipital lobe via the optic nerve. Okay, so this was today's topic, the structure and function of human eye. Let's briefly discuss that what are the functions which the eye performs. Number one, conjugation. The moving together of both eyes to view the distant objects is a process called conjugation. Okay. The movement of both the eyes to view the far off objects is a process of conjugation. It is divided into saccades and pursuit. Saccade is the movement of both eyes when they work parallel. Any movement in which we suddenly shift our eyes from one object to the other is known as second. Okay? For example, the movement of eye during reading a book falls under second, where both eyes are parallel to each other. They jump together from one point to the other in the visual process. This is conjugation. This is second, in which the eye movements, both the eyes work parallel and they jump together from one point to the other. We can also take the example if you are watching television and look at the wall clock to know the time. This is also an example of second. Okay, your eyes, both of your eyes work parallel, work at the same time, move at the same time, shift the vision at the same time. So, on the other hand, what is pursuit? The eye movements that are continuous and uninterrupted. For example, the sequence of eye movements when tracking a moving object is a pursuit. We are not shifting the vision, we are not shifting the eye. Our eyes are not working parallel, but when we track a moving object, this movement is pursuit. In this movement, the individual keeps watching the moving stimulus and continues tracking it in whatsoever direction it is moving. So, this is one of the function of eye, conjugation. Next is convergence. Convergence actually refers to the eye movements in which the eye is focused on a distant object, or we can say that the eyes are focused on a distant object, moving closer and remain fixed on it despite its movement. Eyes also turn inward during this movement. Okay. For example, if we are looking at an individual or we are looking at a vehicle coming closer from afar and keep our eyes fixed on it until it moves up to us, then our eyes turn inward as the individual or a vehicle comes closer. Similarly, hold a pencil in your hand and stretch your hand to its full length. Then slowly draw your hand towards the forehead, towards your eye, and keep looking at the pencil all the while. When the pencil comes closer to your eyes will have turned inward. Okay, you can notice it, you can observe this phenomenon. This is an example of convergence. Convergence, what is convergence? In which the eye turn inward when some distant objects slowly, gradually comes closer to the eye converges, the eye moves inward. Another function is accommodation. The change in the size of pupil in proportion to the intensity of light is termed as accommodation. Accommodation is a process in which our eyes, or we can specifically say that the pupils adjust the eye coming inside the eye, adjust the light coming inside the eye, adjust the proportion or intensity of light. The dilation of pupil in darkness and the constriction of pupil in the light are due to accommodation. When there is intense light, the eye constricts. This process is accommodation. With the help of pupil, the eye constricts so that extensive light do not enter the eye and damage it. And when there is darkness, the pupils dilate. This is also known as accommodation. This process of convergence and dilation keeps the quality of light entering the eye within proper limit. Okay, this accommodation process helps in the proper quantity of light entering the eye. Thus, vision gets clear in low light and the eye is protected from harm in case of too much light. So, this is the purpose of eye. These are the three functions of eye: conjugation, convergence, and accommodation. So, dear students, today we learned about the anatomy or structure of human eye and the process of the visual process, or how we see and when we see, or what we see. So this was today's topic. Hope it is clear. we will be coming with the next topic, factors which influence the eye. Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz.